This Tuesday, on February 9th, 2021, the Busch Clash will be held for the first time on the Daytona road course to start off the season. It's a 14-turn road course, that's about 3.61 miles, and it's going to be a 35-lap event, and Stage 1 will end at lap 15, and the rest of the race will be a 20-lap run to the checkers. And now, let's take a look at all the drivers that will be participating in this race. Driving the one car in 2021 this year, we have Kurt Busch. Last year at the Daytona road course, he finished 14th in a largely forgettable event for him, although he still managed to make it to the top 15, which means that the good results should translate over to 2021. And I would expect Kurt Busch to be fighting around the top 10, somewhere around there. Last year in 2020, he had a win and made it to the round of 8, so I expect more or less another win and perhaps a round of 12 berth, although I wouldn't be surprised if Kurt Busch made it even farther, or if he got bad luck and like in 2019 he was knocked out on the first round. And in the 2-car this year, we have Radek. Last year at the Daytona road course, he finished 13th in another largely forgettable event for him, although it still shows that he was decent at the track, and he should be expected to run in the top 5 to about the top 10. Or that's what I would expect out of him. Last year in 2020, he had 4 wins and made it to the Final Four for the first time since 2017. And I would expect Brad Keselowski to continue building on his past success. Although I don't expect him to get to the Final Four again, I still expect at least 3 wins and perhaps carrying the Penske flag once more into the Final Four. In the 3-car for this Busch Clash, we have Dillon. Last year at the Daytona road course, he did not participate in this event because he had the coronavirus, and he was replaced for that race by Kaz Grala, who finished 7th. Dillon is not that good at road courses in general if you look at the results through his Cup Series career, so I wouldn't expect too much out of him, maybe 10th to 15th at max. Granted, it's not a wreckfest like the 2020 Clash. And I believe the only Daytona road course experience he has was at the 24 Hours of Daytona, where he took a wrong turn on the track and almost caused a huge wreck. So I'm not expecting too much out of Dillon, but he still had a relatively good 2020 with 1 win, and he almost made it into the round of 8 if he didn't have reliability issues. So nevertheless, I'll expect a maybe mediocre race from Dillon in this Busch Clash. In the 4-car for the Busch Clash in 2021, we have Kevin Harvick, and he finished 17th in the Daytona road course race last year, in another forgettable event for this driver. Last year in 2020, he was pretty much the best driver in the field by far, but because of a combination of the playoff system and him and his team kind of choking, Kevin Harvick missed the round of 4 and also missed a shot to even get to the championship 4 when he was pretty clearly the best driver in the field. And I'm sure that the team will be looking to rebound from that and make the Final Four this year. I wouldn't expect too much out of him from the Busch Clash. I'd expect a result probably around 10th. As Kevin Harvick is not the best road course racer, but he's still no slouch around these twisties. And in the Busch Clash for 2021, we have Ryan Newman driving the 6. Last year at the Daytona road course, he finished 19th, and yet again, a forgettable event for him. He will probably have a rather mediocre race, as he's not exactly the best road course racer, and he also just had an abysmal 2020 after that horrible wreck in the Daytona 500, although I'm glad that he's okay and still managed to make it back to racing full-time after that. And I'm just not expecting much from him in this Busch Clash, just because of previous circumstances. And in the 8-car for the Busch Clash in 2021, we have Tyler Radek. Last year at the Daytona road course, he finished 18th in a forgettable event for him. And we don't really have a lot of data about how good of a road course racer Tyler Radek is in the Cup Series, so I'm just going to assume that he'll have a decent race, maybe racing around Kevin Harvick and Ryan Newman and jockeying with them for position, considering that's who he finished behind and in front of in the Daytona road course race in 2021. At 2020, my bad. And in the 9 for the Busch Clash in 2021, we have Chase Elliott. I fully expect Chase Elliott to win the Busch Clash just because he led over half the laps of the Daytona Road Course race back in 2020, and of course he won. And he's also the defending champ coming into this race with 5 wins. And I expect him to keep building on that momentum and to start off the year strong with a win in the Busch Clash. And in the 10 car, we have Erik Amarola. Last year at the Daytona Road Course, he finished 24th in a rather meh race for him. I expect him to have a rather meh race again because he's obviously not the strongest road course racer. And he's coming off a pretty consistent 2020, where at one point I believe he had 5 top 5s in a row. So I'm just going to expect the same sort of consistency from him, although he will probably have a rather poor start to the season in this race. And in the 11 car, we have Denny Hamlin. Last year at the Daytona Road Course, he finished second and led around 16 laps and was probably the second best driver that day, only behind Chase Elliott, who absolutely dominated the race that day. I would expect a top 5 from Hamlin at the least, as he's a pretty decent road course racer in my eyes. He's also coming off a very good 2020, where you could argue that he was most likely the second best driver behind only Kevin Harvick this year. So I expect a good start to the season. And then we have Blaney, who last year at the Daytona Road Course finished 31st. Although he did finish third in stage 2, I still don't know what happened to him and why he had such an abysmal result. So I'm just going to assume it was some sort of mechanical failure, and I would expect out of him a half-decent result, maybe a top 10. And I don't necessarily think of him as a good road course racer, but I would still expect something decent from him. And in the 17, we have Buescher, who surprisingly finished 5th in the Daytona Road Course last year. And although I don't expect the same level of performance in the Busch Clash, I still expect a top 10 from him. And hopefully a rebound year for Roush, as last year they weren't that good. And you could make an argument that Buescher was doing better at GTG Darty Racing, which is a much less prestigious team than Roush. But nonetheless, I still expect probably a good result from Chris, considering he still got 5th at the road course last year. And in the 18, we have Kyle Busch. Last year at the Daytona Road Course, he finished 37th, and he did have mechanical issues, which I remember hearing about whilst my power was out during the race, so I didn't get to watch it. I do think I recall that he was running in the top 5 for a good portion of the race before his mechanical issues unfortunately had him drop out. So I would expect maybe a top 5, or unless he has more bad luck like 2020, I'd still expect a top 5 from my man KFB. And then we have Truex Jr. in the 19 for this race. Last year he finished 3rd in the Daytona Road Course, and I would expect another top 5 from the man. Granted, he has no mechanical issues. He, in my eyes, is a very good road course racer, as he's got around 3 wins at Sonoma and 1 win at Watkins Glen, and also finished runner-up to Chase Elliott at Watkins Glen twice. And he was also battling for the win in the Daytona Road Course race. So I would expect him to be strong and near the front. Although I don't think he's going to win, I would still expect him to finish runner-up or at least in the top 5. And then we have DiBenedetto in the 21. In the Daytona Road Course race last year, he finished 15th. And although I don't necessarily view him as a good road course racer, he is still decent and managed to get a top 5 in 2019 at Sonoma. So I'd expect him to be running maybe around 10th, 11th, 12th. And I would expect him to have a better 2021 than 2020, as he has the motivation of looking for a new ride after the end of the season, and all that other jazz. And then we have the 22 of Joey Lagano. Last year at the Daytona Road Course, he finished 9th, so I would expect him to be running maybe around the top 5 or from around 5th to 10th. He had a pretty good year last year with 3 wins and also making it to the Final Four along with his Penske teammate. So I would expect a semi-decent run from him to start the year off. And then we have Dillon racing for 23 Exide Racing in the Busch Clash because Bubba Wallace is not eligible, and because Dillon is being brought into the Toyota fold along with Joe Gibbs Racing. At the Daytona Road Course last year, Dillon finished 20th, so I would expect a pretty good run from him considering the equipment he has, maybe possibly cracking the top 5. I don't know. I don't really see Dillon as a good road course racer, but I think he's underrated in my opinion. and I wouldn't be surprised if he has a good result to start the year. And in the 24, we have William Byron. Last year at the Daytona Road Course, he finished 8th, and so I expect him to have a decent slash strong run here for this race. And the team also has a new look entering this race, so I'm pretty sure that they would like to have a strong start so that they can have a strong new beginning to their new identity in trying to build a sense of distance from Jeff Gordon's 24. And in the 41, we have Cole Custer. Last year, the Daytona Road Course, he finished 22nd, and so I wouldn't expect much from him in the Busch Clash this year. And he doesn't seem to be that good of a road course racer either, so I'm not really going to expect much out of Cole Custer for the Busch Clash, although for 2021, I would expect him to perhaps get another win and to really build on the success he had, or the, the lack of success he had in 2020. And in the 43 car this year, we have Erik Jones. Last year at the Daytona Road Course, he finished 11th, although that was in much better equipment than what he is going to be racing this year. So I wouldn't be expecting that much from him, although I would still be expecting something better than, say, a Cole Custer. And then in the 47, we have Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Last year at the Daytona Road Course, he finished 16th, so I would expect a decent result from him, although nothing special. And I would also expect a slightly better 2021 than in 2020. Perhaps a win at the restrictor plate tracks if you want to be really generous, but I think he's just going to have another year like 2020, although with less wrecks and some more top 5s and top 10s. And then we have Alex Bowman in the 48 car this year, changing from the 88 because of sponsorship trouble. Last year in the Daytona Road Course race, he finished 12th, so I'd expect a run somewhere around 7th to 8th. He doesn't seem like the best road course racer, although I think he's the driver of the best average finish at the Charlotte Roval. So I would expect a decent outing. And that's it for today, guys. I don't have any other drivers to discuss. And I do have an announcement to make that the stop motion will be delayed for quite some time just because I had to restart the stop motion around February because I had to just totally scrap the entire race just because the frames per second rate was too high. And it was going to take probably like 2 to 3 months to finish it based on the number of laps. So I set the frame rate down. And now it should be done by the end of the month. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to be much better than my first race, which was much more choppy. And this one's definitely looking a lot more smoother. And as I get through the race, I'll make sure to keep you guys in mind and perhaps work a bit harder just for you guys. Anyways, thanks for watching and have a great time watching NASCAR finally come back for the first time since November.